So we're delighted to be with you all, inshallah, today, and we're very excited to host the program. So the purpose of this webinar is to give you a weekly reminder presented by speakers who can give an insight on how we can continue our spiritual journey after Ramadan. So to start off this series, we will begin with how we can maintain the bounties of Ramadan after Ramadan. So for many of us, it is challenging to keep the momentum going. So this is very useful for all of us, I think. So we'll have Sister Summer presenting this webinar today. So she's a secondary school maths teacher, and she's also a youth worker in UKIM. So Summer, can you hear me?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Excellent.
Hand it over to you.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you, Ikra. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, everybody. And like Ikra really nicely encapsulated the purpose of our webinar, we're really thrilled to have you guys join us, inshallah, for this series that we will be organizing for you. So just to kickstart everything that we are doing, or to actually really kickstart the post-Ramadan series, you can say, the topic today, like Ikra mentioned, was how do we maintain the bounties of Ramadan after Ramadan? Now, we know that during Ramadan, alhamdulillah, most of us have a really good routine going. We are all very enthusiastic. We all are in a very, we're engaged in a lot of activities for our personal self, spiritual self, even trying out new dishes. And so you're, exploring different avenues. But as soon as Eid hits and as soon as, we're now 1 week away from Ramadan, it slowly starts, dying down. Our habits slowly start disappearing. And, the momentum we had in Ramadan kind of just dissipates, really. So inshallah, my talk today is going to be about, well, how do we try and maintain those habits in Ramadan? And actually, how do we maintain those bounties? And the key to that predominantly is going to be how to build habits. Because when we start Ramadan, we start it off in, we think we're good, we have a routine, we say we want to do X, Y, and Z. We have a month to practice that habit. So, for example, a lot of us want to finish reading the Quran in the month of Ramadan. And we give ourselves a target. Every salah, I'm going to read 4 pages of the Quran so that we can finish by the time it ends. And that ends up becoming a habit. And then all of a sudden we come out of that habit. And this is why in the first few days, we kind of feel a bit lost, don't we? I think after Eid, everyone's like, oh, we feel a bit strange. We don't really know what's going on. But that's because we've started building this habit. So really, how do we continue that? So, the first thing that I want to talk about when it comes to habit is, let's use an example here. Is, let's say we've got a rubber band, and let's say you put a rubber band on your wrist. At first, putting a rubber band on your wrist is easy, isn't it? You just put it on your wrist. It doesn't hurt. It's minor. You can take it off easily. Now, let's put on another rubber band, and so on, and so on, and so on. And if you keep putting a really big bunch of rubber bands on your wrist, it's going to be really hard to take off, isn't it? Because it's going to be so strong around your wrist. And at one point, it can't even be removed because it's so strong, and you're beginning to feel the pressure of that. So that's a parable I'm using for habits. Is that one habit that you have? Let's talk about a bad habit. One habit that you have, or any habit really, it doesn't make much of a difference. You're just doing something small. It's easy. It's nice. It's fine. But if you keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing that same habit, at one point it's going to be so difficult to undo that habit. The same parable as the rubber band that we have on our wrist. And that's how habits work. So in Ramadan, we started reading the Quran. That's one habit. We kept doing it. We kept doing it. We kept doing it. But our rubber band was not tight enough for us to struggle to let go. And that's the aim. We want to try and get to a stage where our rubber bands are so tightly on our wrist that it is so difficult to let go of them. So the chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they're too strong to be broken. And that's why we've got this quote here. So this is why it's so important to pick a habit that will help in the long term and in the long term. And subhanAllah, we find that actually Ramadan is a really good exercise, a very good way to start instilling or start placing those rubber bands on our wrist. So, eventually, and the same goes both ways. If you have a bad habit and you keep putting them on your wrist, you keep putting them on your wrist like the rubber band, you will be so instilled into that one routine that it's going to be so difficult to break it apart. And that's when the habit becomes harmful. In this case, inshallah, we're not going to be looking at bad habits. We're going to be, inshallah, hoping to look at good habits. So let's start. Pick one. Now, after Ramadan, mashallah, a lot of us were doing so many things. We were doing, we were for Laylatul Qadr, we were doing tahajjud, we were reading the whole Quran, we were reading as much as a juz or even 2 juz a day. Of course, we were fasting, we were giving charity. That's a lot to take on. But after Ramadan, we know that the influence of shaitan is back. We know that these things are physically not possible anymore. And that's why, subhanAllah, Ramadan is used as a training period. But when we come out of Ramadan, how do we maintain that bounty? How do we maintain that spirituality? We need to focus on one of those aspects, okay? So we need to think of just one thing, because we're not going to face much resistance from it. A lot of the time we come out of Ramadan and we have really high hopes. I'll give you a personal example. Like last year, I remember saying to myself, I'm going to come out of Ramadan and I'm going to pray tahajjud every morning, every night. I'm going to try and make that a habit. And with that comes a lot of resistance, because you have to wake up at night. That might have been a stretch too far. So the habit that we do, it needs to be something that is easy, okay? And it's just one thing that you have done in Ramadan, and we must continue it. So the second thing that it should be is that it's something that we can do once a day. And this is really important, because we're coming from this idea of, we've come from Ramadan with a lot of things on our plate, and now we're almost scaling down. Find something that you enjoy during Ramadan and bring it down to once a day. So, for example, this could be reading the Quran. Before we were reading the Quran maybe 4 to 5 times a day. But now come back and just read it once a day. Something that you can easy, it's new, it can be new, or it can be a continuation, of course, from Ramadan, that's the point. Positive, of course, and just once, okay? Because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're going to start resisting, or you're going to start being, you're going to start making excuses for not doing that act. So the positive habit has to be something that we really connect with, something that we care about, and something that's important for us. So maybe during Ramadan, you felt giving charity was a means to get, you found that really uplifting, you found that encouraging. Well, maybe why don't you continue with that? Maybe do it once a day, or maybe do it once a month, or maybe do it, build that into your routine. So, and above all, we need to consider our intentions with this new habit. That we've come from Ramadan and we want it with the intention of continuing the spirituality and the bounties of Ramadan. Now, one thing that I should mention here during this point is that even during Ramadan, some of us still had our bad habits. And if you're trying to eliminate a bad habit that you still continue during Ramadan, I'm going to tell you right now, that's quite difficult to do. And the reason being is because, remember the rubber band on our wrist? If we've got a habit that wasn't so great, and it's going to be very, very difficult to remove that entire bunch of rubber bands from your wrist, isn't it? So if we try and negate the bad habit completely, it's going to actually have more repercussions than something that will be uplifting, something that will bring about a positive change. The way habits work is that we replace them. We don't suddenly say, I'm going to eliminate a bad habit. What we do is we exchange the bad habit with something good. So let's just say, for example, during Ramadan, you were still listening to music. Let's just say, because there's a lot of young people out there who might still be doing that. They might just be a habit that they were doing. But now, whenever they feel the urge of listening to music, maybe they can replace that urge with perhaps listening to the Quran. You're still using the same senses, you're just listening to something different. So, so we can't suddenly take something and just chuck it out the window and think, I'm going to get rid of my bad habit. You need to actually replace it. And that goes with whatever we were doing during Ramadan as well. Now, the next thing, the next tip is going to be scale back the minimum daily requirement and make it small. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants that we do something small but consistently. The worst thing that we can do is do something, have very big plans for ourselves. It's great to be it's great to have aspirations. It's great to be ambitious, and it's great if you set high targets for yourself. But the worst thing is that for 1 week you do something so amazing, and the next week it just you just become very lazy, or you feel like you can't do it anymore. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes our efforts, and we must remember this, that it's our intentions, and secondly, it's our consistency, our efforts. Even if it is something small, even if it is tiny, but we're doing it every single day consistently, that is what will continue to give us, inshallah, the blessings and the bounties of Ramadan that we had. Because one of the signs of our Ramadan being accepted is that we continue something good. We've become a changed person after Ramadan. But sometimes we misinterpret what it means to be a changed person. It doesn't mean that we've done a 360. It just means we've picked up something new that we want to do after Ramadan, and we continue it. And that is done by our intentions and also by the help of Allah. So say, for example, let's come back to this idea of perhaps reading Quran. We were reading Quran a lot, but now, and I was actually, funny enough, I was telling my mom the other day that, I feel like I was reading so much Quran, and now I'm really struggling to keep up to date with reading Quran. And my mom was just like, it doesn't matter, even if you're just reading half a page. And for some of us, even if not half a page, 1 hour, but doing that 1 ayah consistently every single day, that is still enough in the eyes of Allah, that we are doing something with our efforts and we're doing it consistently. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't put us through a training period so that we become perfect afterwards, that we become machines of Islam, or we start, doing all this extreme, all this work, all this, extremely difficult work. That's not the point. In Ramadan, we do a lot so that after Ramadan, we can take away a little bit. Another example I like to use for this is, often, I'm a teacher, so often in school we say to our students, if you want a B grade, aim for an A. If you want an A, aim for an A star. Because if we aim to do the maximum that we can do, there might be areas that we might fall short, and you will get that grade. And this is something very similar, that if we want to excel in our religion, we need to aim to excel, but the amount that we might actually do is just a little bit less than that. So this is why there's so much wisdom behind scaling back the minimum daily requirement. We don't need to be superwomen. We're not expected to be perfect. Small and consistency. So, and the other reason why this is so important is that motivation fluctuates from day to day and even hour to hour. So sometimes relying on motivation to execute a new habit is actually a bad strategy. So that's why we need to have a consistent habit, and that's why we need to scale that back down as well. The next tip that I have for you is to always write it down. And the same way when we started Ramadan, when a lot of us may have written them down in our diaries, we might have written down what we wanted, we might have written down what we wanted to achieve. We plan in advance for Ramadan. We should have a post-Ramadan plan. And this is why we're trying to encourage this seminar or these sessions, because it enables us to continue that. Before, if you were involved, if you guys took part in the Summer of the Quran, even that, use that as an example. We planned for it. All the sisters, they prepared for it. Alhamdulillah, they were very successful at it. And then now we're doing something once a week. We're not doing it every day because for many it's not manageable. And also we write it down as well. So when we write down, and research suggests actually that when we write down when and where we will take actions, it increases our odds of taking that action by 3 times. So we're 3 times more likely to do something if we write it down, because it gives a sense of accountability. So the same way we were preparing for Ramadan, we wrote down that this is what our targets were. After Ramadan, we should also have targets. And later today, in a while, inshallah, we're going to have some sisters share their targets with us. So maybe you can get an idea of what type of targets we should be aiming for. So how do we write down this new, how do we write this plan down? So every day at or after this time, I will go to this place and I will start this habit, okay? Or I will do this action. And if you have this nice and big in your room, on your fridge or somewhere, it reminds you that you need to do this. And it gives you this element of accountability. You must do this. So for example, let's say every day after Maghrib, I will go to my bedroom and read one page of the Quran. And it sounds really trivial and it sounds really basic, but writing things down always helps. And a lot of you will agree with me. You know, writing down really consolidates what we have in our minds and what it is that we really set out to do and what we want. So the other thing about writing it down is that if, for example, we see it on our fridge, that is immediately a trigger point, right? So for example, after Maghrib, so let's use the example that I was just suggesting. After Maghrib, I often go, well, not that I actually do, but maybe after Maghrib, you might go to the kitchen to start cooking, for example, after Maghrib, okay? And immediately in front of you on the fridge where you need to go to get the tomatoes, you have every day after Maghrib, I'm going to go to my bedroom and start and read one page of the Quran. That is a trigger. That will encourage you to go upstairs. And until you've done so, you are going to feel guilty that you can't start cooking until you've done this. So actually, all of this has a huge psychological aspect as well. That, you know, we are aware, we are conscious of the actions that we are doing. Now, the next thing that I have on our list is not to miss 2 days in a row. Now, there's a statistic which says failing to execute a daily habit one day reduces the odds of retaining that habit by 5%. Failing to execute a habit 2 days in a row reduces the odds of retaining that habit by 55%. So what this means is that if you miss a habit, if you miss reading the Quran one day, isn't actually a big deal. And even if you miss it a second day, you're kind of borderline. But the problem with 2 or more days is that it takes you in a downward spiral very, very quickly. You start getting complacent, you think, oh, I don't need to do this anymore. So initially on day 1, you start feeling guilty that, oh, I didn't do it. Second day, you might also feel that guilt. Third day, believe me, you will not feel guilty. You'll just be like, okay, think about diets. The first day you have a bit of a cheat day, you think, oh, I should be doing this. Second day you think, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And then third day you're like, oh, whatever, bring the pizza. It's the same sort of concept. So we need to be into this routine where we don't start going down into this downward spiral, that we can't miss 2 days in a row. And to avoid this, we should make this a rule. So after Ramadan, we've made our plan, we've written it down, and that is a rule. We cannot miss 2 days in a row. Okay? Let's see. Oh yeah, one more thing that I could say about this is when you miss one day, we should try to figure out why we missed it. So say, for example, let's go back to this idea of the Quran. Say, I don't know, your favorite TV show started coming on after Maghrib, okay? And you missed reading the Quran and you started watching that instead. When you come to self-evaluation, you'll be like, oh yes, after Maghrib, that TV program came on. So that's why I forgot to read the Quran. And then you will come up with an action plan that, okay, next time what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that TV show on record so that I can watch it after I've read my Quran. So this is why routine and consistency is so important. I know a lot of this just sounds, oh, you're so extra summer, but believe me, when you're trying, the bounties of Ramadan are not just going to come. You're not just spiritually blessed to continue the things that we did in Ramadan. We need to put in an effort. In Ramadan, things were easy because Alhamdulillah, Shaitan was locked up. There was a complete atmosphere and an environment of people supporting you, and you wanted to do things spiritually. But after Ramadan, those triggers are not there anymore. Those triggers you need to put in. Those triggers, you need to be able to be accountable to that for your own actions. And that's where the real bounty comes from. That's where the real barakah comes from. And that's where the real reward comes from, because Allah knows our intention. And Allah knows that this is what we are really trying to set out to do. and I've been talking a lot about accountability and consequences. And this is why my next point is going to be set the stakes. So to increase our odds of being successful in this consistency, try and tell somebody, your partner or your husband, sorry, your sibling or somebody, or your parents, somebody, about what you're going to do if you do not stick to this routine or this habit. So say, for example, I say that if I miss reading the Quran, I cannot have dessert tonight. And that is punish is a strong word, but we should feel accountable and we should give ourselves consequences for something that we haven't done. And we should have people around us to support us in that. So similarly, you could say, okay, until I read the Quran, I will not have dinner. And that sounds quite extreme, but for someone that might be the reason why they pick up the Quran and read it. Otherwise, it's far too easy for them to go and have dinner. So this is, putting that into writing as well increases our accountability. So you can begin to understand the reasons why it's so important to write. It's almost like a contract with yourself that this is what you're going to do. Remember, all of us wrote contracts before Ramadan that this is what I wanted to improve in myself. Well, this is a self-evaluation contract as well, where we write down what it is we want to achieve between now and inshallah next Ramadan. And then we scale up, etc., etc. Now, what's interesting about all of this is that, oh, sorry, this is if I fail to execute the minimum quota. Yeah, so this is just your template. So if I fail to execute the minimum quota more than 2 days in a row, I will, etc. I won't have dinner, I won't have pudding, etc. Now, this is what I wanted to come on to. Don't trust it. A lot of the time, what we do here is we say we're going to read the Quran. Actually, let's use another example. I've done that quite a bit now. Let's say I'm going to read. Actually, let me think. I'm going to give charity every single day, okay? And for a week, mashallah, you're giving £1 to charity in your charity jar every single day, mashallah, that's amazing. And then you think, oh yeah, this has become a habit, and you stop thinking that it's become routine until suddenly you let go of it. 3 days have gone and you haven't given charity. So never trust a habit until it feels automatic to initiate. And on average, it actually takes 66 days for new behavior to become automatic. So this is, subhanAllah, this is where you can also see the hikmah of the 30-day period we have in Ramadan. That is half this period. So Allah is setting us up to start something new in Ramadan. And this is why it is so important we continue that one thing after Ramadan so that we instill that within ourselves, so that the habit becomes permanent, so it becomes automatic. It's a lot harder to start a habit now because it's going to take another 2 months. Remember, Ramadan is the best time to start something new, to start improving in ourselves. So that's why we've got a 30-day period there, and then we only need to do it for another month before, inshallah, it becomes automatic. But this is why we can't immediately trust our habits when the deed that we are doing or the routine that we are in immediately. We can't do that because it is far too easy. Even a month in, it is far too easy to let go. Which is why a lot of us let go of our habits that we had in Ramadan. We let go of the routine that we had, because we think it's a habit, but it's not really. We haven't done it enough times before it's been consistent, actually automatic and consistent. And there we go, that's what I just said. It takes 66 days for it to become automatic. And finally, when it is automatic, that is when you promote. So when a habit feels automatic, you can raise the daily minimum requirement. So for example, one ayah of the Quran turns to maybe half a page, or one ayah of the Quran turns to 2 ayahs, 2 ayahs then turns to 4 ayahs, 4 ayahs turns to 8, etc. And that is when it becomes easier for you to instill these habits. So what we prepare from now until next Ramadan, inshallah, by next Ramadan, you should have something that is instilled within us, so that when next Ramadan comes, inshallah, may Allah allow us to see that, we start something new. Subhanallah, right? So we did something this Ramadan. We want to continue it. We're practicing that for this whole year, and the next Ramadan we start something new. And then over time, this is how we better our character because we're just being consistent. Small things, small baby steps, small consistent effort, and eventually we will hit our big target. So, say your target is to wake up for tahajjud every single day. Maybe you start with tahajjud once a month, maybe once every 2 weeks, perhaps from now. And then next year, when next year comes, you increase that. Oh, after 2 months, you increase that to maybe once every week. And then 2 months after that, you do maybe twice a week. And then by the time next Ramadan comes, inshallah, you've already got in a stage where you think, oh yes, this is my routine. I'm going to wake up for tahajjud 3 times a week. And then by that time in Ramadan, you can start something new. So subhanAllah, Ramadan really enables us, alhamdulillah, Ramadan is it's a restart for us. It's almost like, our New Year resolutions that a lot of people take in December. Ramadan is like that for us. Use Ramadan as targets. Be systematic and be routinely with Ramadan. Use Ramadan wisely. And then use these tips that I've given you to then implement the small things that we have gained from Ramadan outside of Ramadan. Remember, it is never quantity. It is never quantity. It's always quality. It does not matter how many, it doesn't matter if you're reading 6 pages of the Quran, if you're reading 8 rakats in tahajjud, if you're reading 20 rakats in tahajjud, it is the quality of it. You'd rather wake up for 2 rakat tahajjud consistently over a period of once a week and do that religiously than do 8 rakats of tahajjud every single day and then flat out the second week. That's more worrying than doing something consistently once a week. So let's recap what we've done so far. Remember, we're picking one thing that you've enjoyed from Ramadan, one thing you want to do. You want to make it small, okay? You want to really scale it down, okay? You want to write it down as well, and you want to set the stakes. So you want to build that in your contract. And your rule is not to miss 2 days in a row. And your next one is not to trust it. And when it's automatic, then you promote it. Okay, so this is how we maintain the bounties in Ramadan. I know these are more practical tips, but I think sometimes we need to understand the practicalities behind something before we think about, a lot of the time we struggle with how we implement that. A lot of the time we come out of Ramadan and we say, yes, this is what I want to do. We come out of Ramadan and we say, yes, I want to do X, Y, Z. I want to really be spiritual. What does that even mean? What does it mean to be spiritual? We really need to think about these things. These are not just something, like I said earlier, this is not something that just happens. We need to really think about it. We need to really focus on what we're doing. We need to be conscious of what we're doing. Inshallah, we need to have the correct intention. Remember, I think my rule of thumb for everything is consistency. I tell my own students this when they're coming to revision, it's consistency. I'm not telling you to do revision for 5 hours in a day and then exhaust yourself. I'm telling you to do half an hour of productive revision every single day from the start of year 11 until the end, and inshallah, you'll get the result that you're looking for. And this is exactly the same thing. Remember, Allah is not out there to try and catch us out. He's not there to try and make things difficult for us. He understands the difficulties we go through our day-to-day life. This is why consistency is so important. It's effort and consistency. So inshallah, I hope you all benefited from that. It was just, I wanted to really have a practical perspective of the bounties of Ramadan. How to maintain the bounties of Ramadan beyond Ramadan. And I thought this was a really interesting way of approaching it, inshallah. What I'm going to do now is I've got a lineup of some fantastic sisters, inshallah, who are actually going to give you all examples on what their targets are. How have they tried to maintain it after Ramadan? And what they're doing. They may be following this, I don't know. Maybe this is inspiration for them, I don't know. But inshallah, after they've done their small segments, I would really encourage that we have participation from the audience as well, so that you guys can be open. We can discuss this. We can talk about it. Remember, the purpose of my particular webinar here is so that you guys can discuss this amongst ourselves. You know, what is it that you're doing? What are you finding difficult? Ask questions. You know, maybe you get ideas from some of the sisters that are going to share their experiences as well. So inshallah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to one by one, I'm going to unmute the sisters that are that I've asked inshallah to contribute. The first sister that I would like to join us inshallah is going to be Sister, sorry, just give me a minute, is going to be Sister Aisha. Sister Aisha, I have unmuted you. Aisha one.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well. And yourself?
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, sorry about that. I thought I was unmuted then for a second. I
No,
wasn't.
that's all right. So Aisha, how are you? What are you doing for Ramadan? How are you maintaining the boundaries of Ramadan after Ramadan? What are your targets? What are you doing?
I think, subhanAllah, for myself, being a busy mum, unfortunately, like what I find is like I just come out of that busy Ramadan schedule that I made that timetable, and then it's so easy to fall back into the normal schedule, especially now with school starting as well. So with what I gained from Ramadan this year at the moment was like you mentioned, like listening to the summaries that we went through, and alhamdulillah, I got the opportunity to summarize some of the surahs myself, and it made me realize that once we make time for the Quran, we'll see that it's so easy to derive lessons from it that are quickly achievable, applicable in our everyday life. So my aim and my goal was to look out for those lessons and then try and apply them. And alhamdulillah, we've been managing to do, you know, tidbits of it in this Ramadan.
That's amazing. So how are you doing that after Ramadan? Like, can you give us an example of maybe a practical way you're doing that?
Yeah. So initially, I find that because the kids are at home all day, I'm putting so much pressure on myself to try and get things done in the day. If I've got my tasks done, once the kids have gone to bed, I'm allocating myself some time. And what I found is if you think I'll make time, you will never be able to find time. You have to do it. You have to fit it in, allocate a little bit of time and set that time for yourself to do that. And so I've got like my little prayer mat in my room, and that's my spot where I'm going to pray every day. Got my Quran nearby, and it's easy that it's already there that I know that I have to go and do it. And that's what I set up for myself.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true, Sister Aisha, is that, you know, you just have to do it sometimes. Like if you say you like tomorrow never comes, isn't it?
That's
tomorrow
right.
You just have to do it. You have to do it. You have to say to yourself one day, today's the day that I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it. And then inshallah continue from there.
The thing is, like every day you have the same things happening. The cleaning is there every day. You know, you have to do the cooking. You have to do all of these things. You have to do. What we need to do is we think, okay, let's try and fit Islam into our schedule. Actually, we should be doing it the other way around, fitting our schedules around Islam, around, you know, our daily lives of salah and everything like this. When we do it, when we make that switch, then it becomes so much easier. It's just doing it.
No, Jazakallah khair for that, Aisha, and your contribution there. I think that's really motivating. We just have to get that willpower. We need to get that encouragement. We just have to do it. Definitely. Jazakallah khair, Sister Aisha, for your contribution. That was really, I think that was really uplifting. Jazakallah khair for sharing that with us.
Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, Aisha. That was really, I really enjoyed that. Let's now go to Sister Safia. And she's going to, inshallah, give us a bit of insight from her perspective as well as what is she doing. Let's find her name. There she is. Hello, assalamu alaikum, Safia. Assalamu alaikum, sis. Oh, what happened? Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, assalamu alaikum. Thanks, Summer, for your Jazakallah for your tips. It's really inspired me actually on how I can sort of implement some of my targets post Ramadan. So I think one of the things that I've gained, just like Sister Aisha actually, was that deeper connection to the Quran. I think one of the things was that, the series that we were doing, the even though it was just sort of like a summary, I think it inspired me to sort of approach the Quran differently and to see it differently. And it is not just being a book and reading it, on a Friday, reading Surah Al-Kahf, like reading, really studying it. So, I think I didn't want to lose that, because it really just, when you study the Quran and you learn about it, your eyes just open to the wonders of Allah's words, and the meanings behind it. And I wanted to continue that post Ramadan. So what I've been doing is I've been listening to, I don't know if anyone knows of the teacher Norman Ali Khan. He does really good explanations of the Quran, and what I've tried to do is just take out some time in the day to to get my Quran out, to get my translation out, and to just listen to parts of the Quran, and just to have that feeling, although it's not Ramadan and I really miss Ramadan, it's just bringing that spirit of of the Quran in our lives all the time. So I've been trying to do that. And the second thing I think that I've taken from Ramadan is the whole spirituality of it. I felt like this Ramadan, we had so much time, to connect with Allah, to connect with the Quran, doing those extra days. We had so much time, and now that sort of Ramadan is over and like school is starting, I just want to try and implement all of that spirituality that I gained during Ramadan outside of Ramadan as well. So just taking that time out every day to make dua, to like just something simple as making dua to Allah. I think it can really boost your iman. In Ramadan you make dua every day. Those last final moments before you break your fast, before Fajr, Tahajjud, all those moments. Whereas I know now it's slightly more difficult to have that time, but I think even if it's just before I sleep or after Isha, or taking that time to speak to Allah, and I think inshallah that will just have you continue that iman boost that I got from this Ramadan, and to continue that post Ramadan as well. So yeah, that's
I mean, just a follow-up question. I hope you don't mind. I mean, do you allocate a specific time of day to do that, or is that something that you're working on at the moment?
Is it the dua you were talking about?
Yeah, the dua, or even the lectures that you were saying that you were listening to at the moment.
Yeah, so now that I'm back at school, I'm actually taking time out after I come back from school, to just take out an hour, to just, we had so much time during lockdown, and I don't want to lose that and feel, oh, now that I'm back in school, all of that is out of the window. I still want to try and take out that hour normally after school, and then once I've done everything, once I've showered and all of that sort of stuff, once I feel relaxed within myself, I feel like my frame of mind has to be relaxed. So once I've like showered, I'm in a new set of clothes, I feel relaxed, I feel calm. That's when I feel like there's no specific time. It's normally after school when I'm feeling really relaxed. And in terms of my dua, I feel like normally it's sort of, I kind of like the serenity of the night time. So just having that time, after Isha, or before I sleep, just having that time with me and Allah. I think that's how I try and implement it.
No, Jazakallah khair for sharing that, Sophia. I think I like how, Sister Aisha was talking about we have to just do it. And then the contrast in your perspective is, well, yes, we have to strive to do it. We have to just do it. But also we need to be at the correct frame of mind. We can't be like rushed. We need to be, that's a priority for you. And, that's, some of us may feel that way as well. And you want that one-on-one time. And very similar to what Aisha was saying earlier just now as well with her prayer mat. And you've got your time of the evening, and it's good to see that you've got like a certain time frame to do these things, or certain allocated period of time to do that, whether it be in the evening or anything like that. But Jazakallah khair for sharing your post. Jazakallah, may Allah help us all achieve our post Ramadan goals. And next I've got Dr. Batul, inshallah, once I find her on the list. MashaAllah, there's so many of you. Here we are. Dr. Batul, I've unmuted you. You can unmute yourself. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Jazakallah. So tell us about your past Ramadan. It's great to hear from you.
I think for me, one of the things that stands out for me in Ramadan is it's such a nice, you get really nice, lovely Ramadan vibes. Everyone's happy, everyone's got the best manners, everyone's kinder, nobody wants to argue. You know, Ramadan has that sort of lovely feel, and that's something I didn't want to lose after Ramadan, because like I'm working at the moment and you can get irritable and short-tempered, and you know, we always say that Muslims, we have like the best character. Whenever you ask someone what's the most important thing about being Muslim, people always say, you know, lovely character, having good character is so important. So really what my post Ramadan target was to just be a bit more reflective. And do you know what? I really liked your point about being consistent about things. And I knew being more reflective is such a wishy-washy thing that would probably never get done. So what I decided to do was build on something I'm already doing. So I'm already praying. So what I would do is just take a minute after Salah and just think about like the interactions I've already had during my day. And, you know, was I happy with the way, you know, I spoke to so-and-so, or the way I handled that? And then because you're doing it so soon after, like if you've done something that isn't quite right, you know, you can, it's fresh in your heart. Like you can ask Allah for forgiveness. You can make amends with that person. You can say, oh, sorry, you know, I was hungry and I was a bit rude to you. I'm sorry about that. Like that's what I'm working on at the moment. It's one of those things that I just want to be, you know, feel like a better person all around.
Sure. Yeah. No, I was just going to say I really like what you just said there, because a lot of the time we rush our salah, don't we? Especially after Ramadan, we are praying our salah so thoughtfully, and then after Ramadan, it's like, oh, I'm at work, we need to quickly pray, etc. And we forget the small things. Even, you know, you're not spending a lot of time. It's probably just a minute and a half, maybe, but it's a very concentrated minute and a half. And you know, when we were talking about make it small, I mean, this is very small, but it's consistent, and you're not wasting that time. You're doing something different what you used to do before. I really like that point.
I think it's just that idea of picking something, like when you were speaking about consistency, what hit home for me is you can build on something that you already have. Like for me, if I try to do this at any other time of the day, I don't think I would be able to manage it. But because it's something I'm already doing and I've linked it to that, it's made it so much easier to take that
100%.
moment and just have a think about, how am I handling the day? How am I interacting with people? Am I behaving the way a Muslim should in terms of character and things? So yeah, that's what I'm working on, inshallah. Slow and steady.
Jazakallah khair. No, that's amazing. And you know, you associated your reflection time with your salah. So for you, salah is almost your trigger, like I mentioned with the fridge earlier on. So you know, salah is a trigger. You know, after salah, you need to sit down before standing up, because we all sit down after salah anyway, but you're using that time differently to what you were previously. But
Yeah,
yeah, no, Jazakallah khair for your contribution. I really enjoyed listening to that. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
no, inshallah, like may Allah make it easy for me, and may Allah make it easy.
May Allah make it easy for everyone, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Okay.
Jazakallah. Wa alaikum salam. Jazakallah khair, sister. Right. So let's move on to our. I hope everyone on this webinar, there's mashallah about 65 of you. I'm hoping that you guys are coming up with thoughts of your own. I really want to hear from you. You're not escaping this time. So let's have a look. All right, Sister Rabia. I think this is you, Sister Rabia Khan, perhaps. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Rabia.
Wa alaikum assalam. How are you doing?
Yeah, there's so many. There's a few Rabias on here, and I'm thinking, is this the right one? No, good. How are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Right. So tell us about your post Ramadan.
Yeah. So I think, like for me, in particular, what I was kind of wanting to kind of adhere in my life was sort of how I can sort of implement the Quran and Hadith in my daily life. I just feel like sort of being quite you know, I like to think I'm quite young. You kind of get stuck in a routine. It can be quite difficult to like practically add Islam to your life and like reflect on how you can act on it accordingly. So like, for me, it was quite a lot of kind of reading surahs or even an ayah a day, and sort of researching it and trying to figure out how I could kind of implement it in my life. Sort of like I really enjoyed the webinar series on the journey through the Quran during Ramadan, which I really enjoyed, and I felt like it was something that I could sort of dedicate some time to and really go away and actually afterwards research it even further, and just sort of see like what I could take from that, essentially. And sort of like what I'm doing at home now is like just with my family, we sort of pick a hadith or like an ayah every day, and we try and like discuss it over dinner time. So that's kind of like the time we've sort of set for that, which I think is really good because it kind of keeps the conversation going. Like after Ramadan, I feel like you just kind of like, you feel your Iman kind of weakening and like you just start going back to like daily life all over again. So like having that conversation every day, or like setting time aside, whether it is like reading a few pages or a page a day, like for me specifically is normally like after dinner. I just feel a lot more relaxed back then. And yeah, I can sort of sit back and like just research you know, a particular area deeply. But yeah, I think like what I really enjoyed about Summer was saying like the small steps. I really appreciate that, because I think like as Muslims, or just even as humans in general, I feel like we're quite we focus on the bigger picture and we want to achieve everything really quickly.
Of course.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed the fact that like, you know, understanding that it's about doing something small consistently. So even for me, like it is kind of reading an ayah every day, or like just researching a hadith every day, and kind of researching that and trying to understand its practicality in today's like world. That'd be a huge thing, I think, for me. Yeah.
No, Jazakallah khair for contributing. I think, you know, I really, really liked how you said you guys and you discuss it over dinner. I think that really engages the whole family, not just yourself, but it's something everyone's going to sit on the dinner table to eat, isn't it? And everyone's going to have dinner. Hopefully during lockdown, we should be eating dinner as a family. So, you know, we all, you know, you have that, or there's at least one meal a day that everyone sits down and eats together, and to instill that within not only yourself but your family. I think that's a really fantastic idea. I think a lot of us can take from that. But no, Jazakallah khair for sharing that. I think that's, you know, that's really insightful, really practical as well. I really enjoyed listening to you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's all. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair for contributing. Really appreciate it. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
So I'm going to Jazakallah khair to the 4 sisters that have participated already. I think we can really, you see a range of activities or different things that everyone's doing. Someone is looking at, you know, establishing the connection with Allah. Someone is reflecting after the salah. Someone is having dinner times at home, you know, with a conversation. Other times it's somebody who just, you know, going by adapting a new mannerism or a new etiquette in their daily lifestyle. And I think there's such a wide variety of things that we can do, and hopefully you have taken a few ideas from that, inshallah. I'm going to kind of stop talking because I want to let you guys as the audience, inshallah, participate. I really want to hear what some of you all are doing. I think, you know, I've already taken so many ideas from what some of the sisters have already said, and I hope you have too, but inshallah, maybe what you are doing is going to be inspirational for somebody else. So if you could just perhaps put your hand up, and inshallah I will unmute you. We already have one hand shot right up, mashallah. Sister Azra, I have unmuted you. Would you like, assalamu alaikum. Hello, assalamu alaikum. We can't hear
sister, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right, okay. Actually, alhamdulillah, I was listening to your talk and was really, really good. MashaAllah, you said you were short, subtle changes in your life and definitely have to be consistent. Alhamdulillah. So, you know, in Ramadan, definitely most of us do lots of reading of Quran. But what I've been doing as well, as along with all of you, but that what the thing I did was pondering upon the ayah. You know, I picked up the ayah and pondered upon it, that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said it and how does that ayah gets connected to me. So because Quran was revealed not only in 1400 years ago, it's for now and it's going to be till akhirah. So I looked up a beautiful ayah from the Quran that was Amar bil Maruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. And you know, when I looked at that ayah, mashallah, 5 times nearly it has come up in Quran. And then I reflected upon it that, you know, this bit of ayah, that if you think of a khair, any khair that comes to your mind, do not delay upon it. And that is what I felt it. And that, you know, if a khair comes to my mind, a good deed comes to my mind, I should start instantly without any delay. Because if I do any taqir, the shaitan creeps in, and definitely that thought goes away. But still, I'll be rewarded for a khair because I've thought about it. I have had an intention about it. But if you act upon it straight away, definitely life is too short, sister, isn't it? We don't have much time in the world, and you don't know when your time is going to end. And then, you know, like, and if any bad thought comes to mind, you forbid it. You know, like, keep away from it. You leave it as long as possible. So that was my reflection upon that. Pick up an ayah from the Quran, ponder over it, and implement it, and then it carry it on. So inshallah Rahman, I've been trying to do so, and alhamdulillah, you know, as a beautiful hadith is linked to it as well. So that, you know, if you see anybody doing anything wrong, you all know that, you know, stop it by your hands, if not by your you know, like by your tongue, and if not by your heart. So that is the weakest part of Iman, isn't it? So that is what it is. So my reflection was that inshallah Rahman, I'll try my best to do good by my hands, by my heart, and by my tongue. And I would like to also forbid, you know, keep away, refrain from the evil by my hands, by my tongue, and by my heart. These two hadiths, as well as this Quran ayat of the Quran, really, really, you know, had when I had to ponder upon it, had touched my heart. So, inshallah Rahman, I'll finish with my reflection with the dua, inshallah Rahman. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. So, you know, like, may Allah make us all to follow the straight path of Iman, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Jazakallah khair, sister Azra, for sharing that. I think, you know, I love the idea of maybe picking one ayah of the Quran and, you know, just ponder upon it and then take it the extra mile and try and implement on it. Jazakallah khair for that beautiful dua at the end as well. And, you know, it was very, very thought-provoking. Jazakallah khair. Is there anybody else who would like to contribute? Inshallah, we have time for about another, perhaps two more members of the audience, inshallah, who would like to contribute. It's not scary. Oh, come on, mashallah, there's so many of you. Oh, here we go. We got Ruhi Sadaf, inshallah. Sister, I'm just going to unmute you. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So, sister, I would be talking something different. Like, of course, alhamdulillah, we have been reading Quran and trying to do so many things. But this Ramadan, alhamdulillah, because of the lockdown, I have my kids with me. So what I did is, like, I have my eldest son is 7 years old. So alhamdulillah, there is on YouTube, there's a channel named Understand Quran and Salah the Easy Way. And they have these short clips of 3 minutes, just 3 minutes each. So I started it with my son Rayan, and alhamdulillah, he's 7. And I started it with him. Alhamdulillah, he enjoyed it so much. We are in a routine even now. He reminds me, oh Ammiji, it's time. It's time to 3-minute series. And though sometimes I feel like, is he understanding it? But the main thing is he's looking forward to it. And alhamdulillah, we are like trying to learn a few words of the Quran, because in 3 minutes they tell you, like, they start from A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. So he'll say A'udhu means I seek refuge. So these small bits are making a big difference. So what I really like, alhamdulillah, what I started in Ramadan and have been like continuing in since is something I did with my son, and alhamdulillah, I'm just enjoying it a lot.
Jazakallah khair for sharing that, sister. I think, you know, it's so much easier when you have children to partake, or your family to participate with you in these activities. I think it makes such a big difference, because it means that, you know, you have someone to look forward to it with, and they will look forward to, you know, it's easier to do things together than individually. Jazakallah khair for sharing your post Ramadan plan. It sounds really good, mashallah. May Allah accept it from us. Is there anybody else, inshallah, who would like to contribute? We have time for one more for a couple of minutes before. Oh, quite a few of us. Okay, I'm going to go to Sister Noor, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Noor. I've unmuted you. Sister Noor. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I'm Noor and I live in Edinburgh. I'm feeling a little bit shy, but I'll do my best, inshallah.
Oh, I'm sure you'll be fine, mashallah.
Right. Alhamdulillah, I want to say that it was a beautiful tips that you've given us, a big inspiration to me because I'm a stay-at-home mum, so I do have plenty of time at home. So alhamdulillah, even before Ramadan, I was in a good routine with my personal ibadat, and obviously I'm continuing with that. But for me, the difficulty I have is that I'm not really valuing the small deeds, you know, in the sense that because I'm in a habit of alhamdulillah, it's all with Allah's blessings, performing my voluntary doha and my tahajjud and various other things. It's the shaitan that gets to me, that in the sense that I'm not really valuing the small deeds. And like you said, that just take a small deed and pick that and be consistent with that. So for me, it's something as simple as making sure I have wuzu before I go to bed. Now, obviously, like a lot of us, we already read our surahs at night with Isha prayers, but the chances are I've usually broken it. And then, you know, I'm not really recognizing that there's a lot of reward for that. So I should perform my wuzu again if I have to and jump into bed, because, you know, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that, you know, don't underestimate the Prophet ﷺ said, you know, don't underestimate the reward of even a small deed.
Yeah.
Like lifting, you know, from the streets anything that's in the way that doesn't harm people. So for me, it's been very inspirational, that because obviously I have felt the dip like a lot of us after Ramadan, but it's again that, you know, it was really positive the way you've described it and the way you've explained it to us, and all the other sisters have shared their you know, views on how they're going to set these targets. And it's so true that, you know, it does take effort, but also you have to fight the shaitan. Because like, for example, I'm alhamdulillah doing the bigger things, because sometimes we get silly in the sense it's human nature to go for big things, and then we forget the small things that are very, very valuable. So I'm to work on the small things, like doing more tasbiyat, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is very easy to do. But, you know, so I just want to say Jazakallah khair for the beautiful work that you all do for UKIM, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala build you all houses of, you know, in Jannah.
I mean, Jazakallah khair, Sister Noor. That was very, very lovely. Jazakallah khair. I think, you know, firstly, congratulations.
I hope it made sense.
Congratulations for overcoming your shyness. I think that's one thing that you know, there's no reason to be shy, alhamdulillah. But Jazakallah khair really for finding the courage and talking to us, because we all learn from each other through this way. But no, definitely, I completely agree with what you're saying in terms of just the small stuff. And, you know, you give such a beautiful example of just wudu before bed. You know, sometimes we, you know, as humans, it's natural. I think someone else previously mentioned that we want to do all the big stuff and we forget about the small stuff. And thank you for really hitting that point home. So really, Jazakallah khair, Sister Noor. But however, I know I can see maybe one or two more hands up. Unfortunately, it is now 6 o'clock and I can't keep you longer than that. So Jazakallah khair for listening to our presentation. I'm going to hand it back to the host, inshallah. But may Allah, you know, really enable us and give us a tawfiq to really help us maintain those bounties after Ramadan, because alhamdulillah, like many others, a lot of us have had good Ramadans this year just because of our situation. Alhamdulillah, there's a blessing in everything, and may Allah enable us to continue that. May Allah enable us to continue that after Ramadan as well. Jazakallah khair for listening to my short reminder, inshallah. I'm now going to hand it back to the host, inshallah, Sister Ikra, and inshallah we'll speak to you very soon.
Jazakallah khair, Samar. That was really useful. I myself got some really useful tips on how I can continue my good habits outside of Ramadan. So inshallah, we can all take advantage of today's webinar by continuing a good habit with the intention of pleasing Allah. And just to add to your point, right now we're in the month of Shawwal, so we have these 6 fasts that we can all do, and inshallah these will help us to build our habits, our good habits, and to make them solid so that we can continue them till the next Ramadan, inshallah. And also, Jazakallah khair to all of the other sisters who contributed to today's webinar with their personal experiences. We really appreciate it. And I think all of us can relate to you in one way or another. So inshallah, let's all think about what our targets are post-Ramadan and how we can achieve them. So thank you everyone for attending. Inshallah, we will see you all next week. We will be talking about the concept of barakah, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.